to our channel to receive our content. I'd like to start by thanking our supporting members and say that at the end of this episode, we will have time to questions from the audience, and we will use the Slido to collect them so you can scan this QR code. I also post the information on the YouTube. I'm here today with my colleague Valentin, who will introduce our guests.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara, and good morning, everyone, if you're calling in from Europe, or good afternoon, everyone, if you're calling in from Asia as our honorable guests. We are speaking today about the, about the Universal Digital Payment Network, and our guests are Steffen Schacher. He is the UDPN Lead of GFT, and we have Tim Bailey, who is the VP of Global Business and Operations of Red Date Technology. So welcome, Steffen, and welcome, Tim. It's great to have you here, and we are very excited to hear about the UDPN. Tim, maybe do you want to go ahead, maybe say a word?
No, thank you. It's great to be here, and thank you for inviting us. Steffen and I are really excited to talk to this audience about the Universal Digital Payments Network. And so I think first what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Steffen to kick it off.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. Just checking with the audience. Are you able to see the slide deck that I'm just presenting? Okay, very great. All right. Also from my side, warm welcome. So my name is Steffen Schacher. I'm working for GFT. It's a German system integration company, which is basically very strong in application development and professional service around financial services sector. And yeah, I'm here today with our partner organization, Red Date. And we have basically started 2 years ago building UDPN together in a joint initiative. And yeah, today you will experience a little bit more about, like, not only from a technical side, but also from a use case perspective. What is it that UDPN is really behind, and what is it that we are trying to do and achieving with it? Okay. So first I would like to start what we have done in the World Economic Forum this year in Davos. So we officially launched UDPN as a network. So it's a live and running network, and this is one of the major things that actually sets us apart from our competitors. So it's really a live network where you can execute and test transactions, where you can test real life use cases. And yeah, so we have launched this in Davos. I think it's around 6 or 7 months ago now when we did that. And since then we have had lots of organizations that you see over there giving us feedback, being part of our proof of concepts, being like early stage adopter, trying different use cases out, adopting it with knowledge from their environment. And yeah, we are in a phase of like POCs at the moment, and you will hear a little bit more in detail what kind of POCs we are running later. Okay, cool. So what is UDPN? So basically, what we have designed is really a leading interoperable payments network for regulated digital currencies. So if I say regulated digital currencies, obviously we are targeting CBDCs in the future, but we will have a lot of different kinds of technology and solution approaches before CBDCs come. So there will be maybe tokenized deposits, there will be stable coins, there will be maybe other forms of financial payments and digital currency payments running across that network. I also would like to highlight UDPN is not a network for crypto. So it's really an environment for a regulated environment to aim with the distributed ledger technologies and blockchain that we are running our core technology to drive efficiency, transparency in digital payments, and absolutely reduce the costs. Okay. Before I start to go a little bit more into detail about how we have designed UDPN, I'd like to highlight a few imperatives basically around digital currencies. So all of us, I think we will agree that money will be digital in the future. So what will be the impact of it? So there's a lot around speed and access at the moment. So many of these financial institutions that we are talking to, the feedback from them and these tier 1 banks is absolutely, hey, we need a network that is able in the future to bring down maybe T2, T3 delivery time for payments into near atomic settlement. So this is able to do this with the technology, obviously in the area of cross-border payments, cross-border settlements, cross-border remittance. There's a lot of things in the background that needs to be considered, needs to be understood, and therefore also UDPN sits on a very scalable architecture. There's also a big part in financial inclusion. So with digital wallets and with digital assets being available for people from the unbanked and underbanked environment really gives individuals from different areas and different countries access to it. And we can already see in the approaches from CBDCs, which it's not really the big countries which are establishing CBDCs right now. Many of them doing tests, many of them are environment in POCs, but there's a lot of like smaller countries doing like the more sophisticated experiments. They're doing more the forefront running on innovation. They're doing more this. So we will say a real impact on financial inclusion with this. Programmable money is all about smart contracts. So there will be a lot of like use cases which we are not even able to think about it now. Will be running on such networks that, for example, UDPN is. Cost reduction, it's a huge driver. I guess all of you know how painful it is at the moment to transfer money overseas, not only for retail cases, but even more for the wholesale environment. Also for interbanking is a very, very complex and a very, very cost extensive. Basically, it is very cost intensive, but then also the complexity itself. So there's more and more new technologies coming up. Not every country will have a different approach to digital currencies and CBDCs, but almost every country will design it differently, will have different requirements, will have subset of different technologies, might use public chains, might use private chains. Some of the countries might use even off-chain solutions to basically inaugurate and circulate their CBDCs and provide it in some of them in a central or some of them in a decentralized manner to the participants and to the banks, to the end user, to the retail customers. And it's really a high number of complexity that is rising it, because also the technology from different blockchain solutions will only rise. It will not get less. There will be more blockchains coming up. There will be more complex solutions, and UDPN itself is in the core to aim for the interoperability on this. Yeah, and then obviously trust and security is a very, very important point. And I think many of these papers or initiatives that are created, being it Europe, being it the US, have like the trust and security concern on the core of it. Yeah. So this is what we think will be the impact of it. And to tell you a little bit more on why we have built UDPN. So what we have seen in the market is actually the focus on CBDCs, right? So the CBDC tracker is also a great tool where you can see how many countries doing experiments, how many countries doing POCs. It's really almost on a weekly basis. You see changes in there, you see new developments, and it's really interesting to watch the space, also to learn from that area. Another one is stablecoins, the bridge to CBDC. So from a technology perspective, we believe that stablecoins or tokenized deposits will come a lot earlier in mass adoption than CBDCs actually. And when you look in how is it rising in terms of like adoption, how much more liquidity flows into stablecoins itself, how many more not only governments and regulators pushing forward, but also commercial institutions. And this not only includes banks, this includes a huge variety of different kind of businesses. We do see in Asia, for example, airlines, telcos, e-commerce provider playing with the idea and having concepts to launch their own stablecoin. So what we believe as well, there will be a lot of initiatives about different kinds of like stablecoins, and they will be driven from like, yeah, innovation areas like Asia, but there's also a lots of thinking in Europe that I'm hearing is ongoing. And then obviously some of the organizations, even Australia, for example, US have already launched stablecoins, right? Okay. Then cross-border payment transaction market, huge cost savings at the moment. I think there's around 120 billion just alone on transaction costs being spent every year, if not more than that. So there's a huge potential of savings. And last but not least, DLT adoption. So all of you come from a tech environment today in this call. Many of you have experience. It's not the small POCs that banks want to try out something in a DLT phase. No, there's like real big implementations going on, and especially as GFT and also Red Date from a system integration or product development company, we can see really, really big movements in the DLD adoption. All right. Okay, maybe Tim, could you tell us a little bit more about what the core principles on UDPN are?
Sure. Thanks, Stefan. So, as Stefan mentioned, we actually started partnering together with GFT almost 3 years ago now to build the UDPN, and the thinking behind it was, as Stefan showed before, you have this critical mass of central banks looking at central bank digital currencies. Stable coins, specifically liquidity-backed stable coins, are becoming, more popular as a payment mechanism. You're now seeing, many central banks looking at rolling out regulatory guidelines around stable coins. I know where I'm based here in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority is working on providing some guidelines. I believe MAS and others are doing something similar in other jurisdictions. So if you think, then you see that the world is moving toward digital payments. One of the big challenges there is that all of those technologies, CBDCs, stablecoins, will be built on different technologies. Different blockchains. Some will be public, some will be private. There are even, many CBDCs that will be built in a centralized system, won't even be, DLT based. So what we saw was that the missing piece there is an interoperability network that enables the multiple different CBDCs and regulated stable coins to interact and facilitate more efficient and faster payments. So what the UDPN enables is any entity, not just a bank, not just a payment service provider, but even an enterprise can connect to the UDPN and initiate transfer and swaps of digital currencies. So imagine, a large enterprise would be able to connect their ERP system to the UDPN and be able to initiate transfers and receive payments directly with the network. So the UDPN itself doesn't serve end users or individuals directly. It is connected to banks, payment service providers, enterprises through the IT systems, through their existing IT systems. So they would operate a business node in the network that provides the gateway to all of the digital currencies onboarded. Another thing that's unique about the UDPN is that it has a decentralized governance, in that it will be governed by initially 6 founding members of what we call the UDPN Alliance, and eventually 24. And that will be made up of both banks and technology companies, and will have a geographic balance. So won't be centralized in Europe or the Americas or in Asia, but rather will have some reflect the geographic diversity. Each member of that UDPN Alliance will have an equal vote in how the network is operated. So for example, they will vote on, and each member will have an equal vote, will vote on things like, do we onboard a new currency, a new CBDC currency? Do we change the commercial structure of the UDPN? So that will be put to a vote among all of the UDPN Alliance members. The other thing that is unique about the UDPN is that when you look at legacy payment networks or payment messaging networks, mostly what they do is they transmit data from bank A to bank B to bank C. The UDPN is unique in that it has an application layer or a runtime layer that enables a bank or a payment service provider or any type of business to deploy their own smart contract-based value-added services. So imagine, a bank that wants to deploy their own foreign exchange smart contract-based service, or a cross-institutional KYC based service. So we think that one of the things that's important about the UDPN and really valuable for the industry is it provides a platform for innovation for banks and other players to bring new ideas and new services to be able to execute over the UDPN. Next, Steffen. So this is a simple diagram of the UDPN architecture. What you have on the right side are transaction nodes, and transaction nodes would be operated by central banks or regulated stablecoin operators. And so transaction nodes would be customized to the unique technologies or unique requirements of each central bank digital currency or regulated stablecoin. So think of a transaction node as the way that digital currencies are onboarded onto the UDPN. On the left-hand side, you have what we call business nodes. And so business nodes would be operated by commercial banks, payment service providers, really, any type of enterprise. And think of the business node as the gateway to all of the digital currencies that have been onboarded onto the UDPN. So that kind of middle layer where you have the UDPN network and the application layer are the blockchain portion of the network. So actually the transaction nodes and the business nodes are actually off-chain for security reasons. So the blockchain layer is what we have in the center there. Each member of the UDPN alliance would operate a validator node in the network. And there's also a read-only transaction audit and reporting nodes that can be operated by regulators like central banks in order to do transaction audit and reporting on their specific currencies. The top layer, or the application layer, is what I was referring to earlier in my earlier slide, where there will be a set of UDPN kind of basic official services for basic functions like transfer, swap, DID. And then that red box is where other companies, third parties, banks are able to deploy their own smart contract-based value-added services to perform functions that they think will bring value to their customers. So we think that that's one of the aspects of that we've thought a lot about when we designed the UDPN is enabling, having an innovation layer where others in the industry could bring new ideas and innovate and bring new services. Next. So when we announced the UDPN at Davos at the World Economic Forum week in January, we also announced a series of 12 proof of concepts that we are running, and we kicked those off very quickly after the Davos launch. We're running all of these POCs with over 30 global commercial banks, professional services companies, law firms, tech companies, as well as central banks. And the way that these POCs work is they start from the very simple, digital currency transfer and swap is a very kind of basic feature on the UDPN. And then they increase in complexity over the course of the POCs. So the later POCs leverage some of the existing functions that we demonstrate in the previous POCs. So as an example, one of the most complex and popular POCs is central bank digital currency systems and cross-border payments, which relies heavily on POC 9, which is facilitating foreign exchange on digital currencies. So they build on each other in terms of complexity. All of these POCs are being run in the UDPN sandbox, which is a live infrastructure where we have, again, over 30 different banks, professional services companies, law firm, tech companies actively testing out the system, the basic features, and also executing on the POCs using the testing guides that the team prepared and testing out the systems. And the feedback that we hear from the participants, it's certainly the most advanced CBDC and regulated stablecoin infrastructure in the world, and is providing valuable insights and learnings for all the participants to learn how all of this will work. So one of the reasons why Steffen and I wanted to be here today is there are a lot of members of the Digital Euro Association that are involved in this space, and we'd like to extend our personal invitation to anyone who's watching the call today and thinks it would be interesting to participate in one of the POCs. Please do contact us. You can contact us at contact@udpn.io. You can also go up to the udpn.io website. There's a white paper. There's additional details on each of the POCs, and there are ways for you to contact us. So I would encourage any people who are interested in being involved in the project and advancing it to contact us. Next. So as an example of some of the POC work that's gone on, Deutsche Bank and Standard Chartered announced, I think now 3 weeks ago, their participation in the POC 1, which is a digital currency transfer and swap. They have been actively participating in that POC for the past couple months, and their view that they've expressed to us is this is very in-depth and sophisticated as an infrastructure, and has provided really valuable learnings to both Deutsche Bank and Standard Chartered. You should expect to see more and similar press announcements coming out over the next several weeks from some of the other participants who are participating in the UDPN POCs. Next. So that's it for our kind of prepared presentation. Again, we welcome any of the Digital Euro Association members to contact us if you have interest in just participating in any of the POCs we're running, or even if you just have questions or want more information. Steffen and I started getting involved in the Digital Euro Association activities several months ago with Tamara and Valentin and Jonas and the team. And I think we're very like-minded about the direction that we're all moving. So really encourage members of the Digital Euro Association to get in touch. And then Steffen and I are happy to answer questions here now.
Great. Thank you so much, Steffen and Ting, for this presentation. Yeah, I'd like to start talking about the architecture. So you mentioned, I think, 4 different nodes and the distinction between on-chain and off-chain nodes. So perhaps you can, elaborate more on this distinction. And I think you are using Hyperledger basis, right, in one of these nodes. So it would be great to have more details about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're correct that the blockchain layer of the UDPN is running on Hyperledger Besu now. We will integrate other blockchain protocols over time because we're layer 1 agnostic. So there will be other blockchain protocols in the future. The term transaction node and business node, when you look at the transaction nodes on the right, which are operated by central banks, and the business nodes on the left, which would be operated by a commercial bank or an enterprise, they're not nodes in the blockchain terminology, in Web3 terminology. They're really API collections that are off-chain, again, for security reasons. So they're not technically blockchain nodes. They're a collection of APIs. The 2 types of nodes in the blockchain layer are the validator nodes and the transaction audit and reporting nodes, or TAR nodes. So the validator nodes, each UDPN alliance member operates a validator node in the network, and that kind of creates that decentralization that we think is really important. The UDPN alliance members will also vote. There's a voting mechanism in the validator nodes, so they will actually vote on key topics, governing the network, like I mentioned, like which CBDCs to onboard. Do we change the commercial structures? Do we integrate a new blockchain protocol? All of that voting will happen via the validator nodes. And then the transaction audit and reporting nodes, or the TAR nodes, are read-only nodes that would enable a regulator to be able to do an audit and reporting on their currencies only, right? So for example, and I use the Hong Kong case because I live in Hong Kong. If the Hong Kong Monetary Authority were to decide to issue an e-Hong Kong dollar or a Hong Kong dollar CBDC, the Monetary Authority could operate a read-only transaction audit and reporting node that would enable the regulator to have access to transaction records on their currencies, not all currencies on the UDPN, just only the currencies that they regulate.
Maybe to add from my side, so we are currently working on the transaction node level with multiple different blockchain solutions already. So we have it connected today to Solana, to Algorand, to Ethereum, of course. Avalanche is one of the technologies that we are using and have connected. But not only blockchain technology, so definitely also like different like currencies, so to say. So especially if you look at the USDC side, which is spread across, I think, 8 or more different blockchains at the moment. So we are able to connect all of them. And there's a lot of thinking also in the European environment to have digital currencies like basically distributed among more blockchains. Many of the organizations that we are talking to, they select one in the beginning, and they would like to have it open, obviously, yeah. But again, it's totally independent on what kind of currency, digital currency systems it is connected to a transactional. We are able to connect all of them. So again, so private chains, public chains, centralized systems, decentralized systems. We also working very closely together with a company from Germany called Giesecke and Deverin, which are providing CBDC solutions, which is running on our network. We are in collaboration with many CBDC providers globally to onboard them, and it's just really a matter of time and focus. Which one are we onboarding first? So our idea is to have as many as possible currency systems connected to UDPN, because it's really on the scalable side, on the transaction node itself, to connect as many as different possible to really display the key that we are solving to the case of interoperability.
Yeah.
Also, when you look at that, yeah.
I was going to say, Steffen made a really important point, which is people sometimes say, oh, you're using Hyperledger Besu as the protocol for the blockchain layer on the UDPN. Oh, that means that all the currencies on UDPN need to be based on Hyperledger Besu. That's not correct, right? We can, the Besu performs, the blockchain layer performs a specific function within the network. The UDPN supports digital currencies based on public chain, any permission chain. And as Steffen mentioned, even centralized systems that are non-blockchain or non-DLT based are supported by the UDPN. Sorry, Steffen, I interrupted you a second.
Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to move on to the business node side, also from a technical perspective. So business node, you can simply think about it as an API gateway from a traditional banking environment, core banking services, business intelligence, execution and initiation of payments as current IT systems. So it can be really anything that is connected there. Today we are talking to telco providers, to also insurance use cases that we are having over there, and looking how can we do sometimes a green, a brown, or like a very old legacy systems being able to connect to the blockchain environment to initiate payments, basically. So again, also on the business node side, we also aim for very high scalability to connect as many as different use cases, companies, commercial organizations to use UDPN itself. So what we would like to have is like that any kind of business can initiate payments. And what is very important as well, not only from a technical perspective, but from a regulated perspective, these business nodes will be run by institutions. So this could be financial institutions, but also others. And these entities or businesses basically within the countries, they need to comply with local regulation efforts and regulations within the country itself, basically. Talking about AML, KYC and stuff like this, and this is all basically what is done behind there. That is also one of the reasons why we will not connect an end user directly to UDPN. So there's always a business entity actually in between. All right, cool. Okay, I think Valentin, you raised your hand. You have a question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steffen and Tim, for this amazing introduction. I got a really good picture, and I hope our audience did so as well. I have a question about the bridge, or about the technical specificalities of the bridge, or the layer 0 that you obviously try to be. And from my understanding, you are not a permissionless blockchain, so not anybody can come and send transaction. Not anybody can deploy smart contracts, but only participants of your network, of your regulated network, can deploy smart contracts. So this, I guess, like allows KYC and the AML compliance, as you said, and to the cost of centralization. So I guess the bridge part is like more or less a centralized node. And my question is about security, because if we look at the blockchain history of the past years, the main hacks were bridge hacks. So bridges, like from blockchain A to blockchain B, are very can be hacked. They are the security bottleneck. And if you look at the main hacks, it's billions of dollars that got lost by hacks on bridges. So this would be my question: how can you ensure the security of this layer 0, where you want to connect different bridges? Do you use it do you use only like centralized technology, or just want to mention the Thor chain, which launched in the last weeks, and they use a very heavy economic incentive to bridge different chains. But yeah, what is your approach to security?
So maybe I'll start, and Steffen, you could build on it. Yeah, one of the key, it's a really good question. One of the key aspects and security considerations that we made is that no IT system, whether it's a bank's IT system or a central bank or an enterprise or a payment service provider, connects directly to the UDPN blockchain layer. The business nodes are really, again, a collection of APIs. So businesses, banks, everyone connects through a business node. And the same token on the central bank side, they connect through transaction nodes. And both of those are off-chain and are permissioned. So there will be some KYC around setting up and operating a business node. Similarly, on the central bank side, obviously, we won't have unregulated cryptocurrencies, operating transaction nodes, right? There will be an authorization and a governance around that. So but the key on the business node and transaction nodes is that they're off chain, which addresses, the cybersecurity issues and the hacking that you're talking about. Steffen,
yeah, thank you very much.
Steffen, did you want to add anything?
No, this was very well explained.
So why do you choose the DLT as the center of this network? Because the technical access points are centralized. So do you need a DLT for transparency? Because a critic could say you don't get the best of all worlds out of it, because you don't have the benefits of a DLT. For example, that you can send a transaction, it will get through, it's atomic. But because every participant that sends a transaction will rely on the centralized transaction node to send the transaction. While on the other hand, I guess you get the slow speed of the Hyperledger and obviously, I guess, a transaction cost of the Hyperledger DLT. So yeah, why did you choose exactly this setup?
It's a very good question, and so we are at the moment in the phase of POC, right? So the UDPN network as well at the moment is running on Hyperledger Basin, but in terms of speed, in terms of throughput, in terms of security, there's a lot of other solutions out there. So this is part of the POCs that we are actually currently evaluating, and there could be that once we move UDPN from the current POC environment to a productive environment, it could be that we are still running on Hyperledger Basin, because for our requirements in terms of speed, throughput, security, it's sufficient enough, or we will change the underlying technology of this. So we want to be completely independent from it, because we also know technology is evolving very fast. So also from our side, being blockchain experts, being in the space for a very long time and being able to see how the market moves, even if we would make now a decision, that decision in terms of technology advancement might change in 6 months down the road. So it's really important to have the design of the architecture in this kind of modules and node structure. And that is actually from what we have played with different architectures in making that happen. And I think you pointed out some of the parts of like having the best of both worlds, but also it's a combination of what you have to integrate. Yeah? On one side, you have the security aspects. They are really, really important. And in a permissioned blockchain, that is one of the core elements itself. And then obviously the speed and access throughput. And we have, let me just jump back to the POCs. So when you see POC number 10, central bank digital currency systems and cross-border payments transaction. So we actually have simulated already a retail use case from having, for example, a digital euro transferring to India. We had, I think, 6 different systems involved, and the whole process of sending a message across on our current environment took us less than 1 minute. So it was something in the area about 56, 57 seconds. And this is already very fast. And this was simulated with 2 different currency systems as well. Obviously, once you scale up the network and you have a lot more requests on it, this becomes something of concern, right? On the other hand itself, on the UDPN network itself, you will not find information in the message that's sent across about sender information, about what kind of currency, about how much currency has been sending across. So it's a totally safe and secure way. The messages that send across on it, on the validator nodes, they are not providing this visibility. These informations are only located in the business IT systems behind the business nodes and also in the transaction nodes itself. And that is something that is really important. And also it's on the security from UDPN.
Yeah, I think that's right. The only other thing I would add is the network doesn't hold custody. It doesn't have a custody function, right? It doesn't hold funds on behalf of users, right? So that's something important to understand from a security standpoint. Funds are held within commercial banks, within central banks, within their own IT systems, not within the UDPN itself.
Yeah, we do have some questions from the audience. The first is, how long is the estimated lead time, including design and project specification, for a central bank to issue a CBDC on the UDPN production environment?
Mm-hmm.
The simple answer is it depends, depending on the requirements of the central bank. If it's a private chain solution, if it's a centralized system. So I think it will vary, but to give you some real numbers in the past, we have onboarded stablecoins in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right, max. We onboarded GSEC and Devrance Filia CBDC system that Steffen referred to earlier. I think it was 3 to 4 weeks of work. So we're talking about weeks, not months.
Great. And more one, how does this network differ from a unified ledger according to BIS?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
So we are talking about this universal digital payment network. And someone are asking how this is different from the unified ledger according to the BIS. So BIS has this concept of this unified ledger, but now we are talking about other unified network, right?
Yeah, so maybe let me start and then you can build on that. So BIS itself, they're working on a concept, and I think what the question is referring to could be mBridge. So there's obviously like a lot of areas in terms of research going on. There's a lot of areas in like alignment between central banks and this driving. UDPN itself, it's really already a running infrastructure. So UDPN is a product that is built, that is there, that people can use. So I think this is one of the major differentiator to many of the other projects and initiatives that are out there. UDPN works and is functioning, right? A lot of initiatives out there is a concept proposal, research paper mode and stuff like this. There's a lot of good things and a lot of thought processes into that. Yeah, there's I would say also quite some collaboration happening between different solution providers about like combining their solution together with UDPN. So this is actually also something that we are exploring within proof of concepts yet. It's nothing yet that we can disclose who are the ones we are working together, but there's ideas of collaboration definitely happening, because UDPN itself is something that works on a transaction layer. communication layer.
Great, thank you. And we have one more about privacy. So how does the UDPN ensure the privacy and security of the user's data? So I guess that you have this decentralized ID system. So perhaps you can elaborate more. So this data, it's on chain, on the on-chain part of the architecture, or is on the off-chain?
Yeah, so the UDPN is a messaging platform, so it doesn't store any user information. So most of the user's personal privacy data is stored off-chain within the business IT system, within a bank's IT system. All the interactions between end users and the business IT systems are off-chain, again, with the business node. So they don't occur on the UDPN. For transactions that do take place on the UDPN, only the validator nodes and the transaction audit and reporting nodes are able to view certain details of transaction requests, but that doesn't include any personal identified information. And obviously, you know, the transactions that take place are encrypted. So user privacy is very important to us, and so we've designed it with that in mind.
Great.
Can outside actors read the transaction of the validator nodes?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, as we're talking about privacy, is it possible for me as a non-participant of the network, like I don't have access to the APIs or transaction nodes, but is it possible for me to read the transactions of the DLT part of the network, currently Hyperledger?
No. No, it's not possible. So it's basically the validator nodes itself, they will be operated by the alliance members, right? It's a permission blockchain, so only alliance member itself will be able to operate a validator node. They are the ones who are seeing such kind of transaction, but there's no personal transaction information included in these informations. Again, they are only visible behind the current IT systems, behind the business nodes, and in the transactions nodes, but not on the messages that be sent across on the validator nodes.
Yeah, so you and the validator nodes are not accessible from the outside. So even if there's a hashed address in it, this data cannot permeate to the outside. So I would say this is at least as private as the current payment system, I would say, because it's a messaging system in between regulated actors.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I would say this is a very interesting and a trade-off between privacy and KYC that every payment system faces.
Correct.
And it's important to strike the right balance. And one thing that we should, you know, emphasize and be clear about is this is a network for regulated currencies, where you know, regulators in various jurisdictions have issued currencies under their specific regulations and supports, you know, all of the, you know, KYC requirements and AML and CTF that we think are, you know, essential to, you know, having a, you know, mainstream, you know, globally adopted payment network.
Do we have more questions from the audience, Tamara?
Yes, we have one more, but yeah, you can go ahead.
No, please go ahead, because this call is obviously for our audience.
Yeah, I think it's related with the thing. So this it's about the governance structure. You mentioned in your presentation about this alliance, right? So the question is about how is the governance structure of the UDPN design, and what are the key instances where voting is demanded among the different nodes?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of the question, Tamara?
Yeah, what are the key instances where voting among the different nodes is required for decisions in the different stakeholders?
Good question. So examples of topics that are voted on are if a new central bank has rolled out a new central bank, a CBDC, and wants that to be onboarded onto the UDPN, the UDPN alliance members vote on that. Other examples of voting topic would be, a new bank or a new, tech company or organization wants to be a member of the UDPN alliance. The existing members vote on that. The commercial fees on the UDPN, there will be, fees for transactions and API calls and things like that. If those fees are changed, that would require a majority vote by the members. So those are examples of the type of governance decisions that the UDPN Alliance members would be asked to vote on.
Which voting system do you use? Is it quadratic voting, or every member has one vote, one voice?
Every member has one vote, and it's an equal vote. So to be clear, even GFT and Red Date, who are the two initial founders and initiators of the UDPN network, will have an equal vote. To each of us has one vote, which is equal to the 20th member of the UDPN Alliance.
So one of the reasons we took 24 as a number is also the area, how do you arrive on a supermajority, basically. So I think it's 24 is a good number that we came up, and especially some of the decisions to be taken on the network itself will require different threshold of votes. For example, decisions about how much the fee structure will be, for example, decisions how many, if there's a new currency to be onboarded on the network, or also if there's a new business node, maybe this will be also different kind of like threshold, so to say. And in order to arrive at a supermajority for that, 24 is a really good number that we came up with some of our mathematical conclusions, so to say, calculations, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So we're slowly coming to the end of this call. It sounds like you are building on the DLT innovations. So I have a twofold question, because I find your product very, very fascinating. How much is your design or the technology influenced by open source development, and obviously also DLT development? Talking about Bitcoin chain, Ethereum chain, and so on, and like, because I think even this voting system is kind of influenced by it. And then the second part of it would be, how do you want to foster innovation? So I think your solution is a really great solution for like CBDC networks, interbank messaging, and I think one of your selling point is also the network that you are able to acquire. So you've got some of the biggest players in the world. So I think it's a really good bet, let's say. And you said you want to exclude crypto. So I want to give this example. Let's say tokenized real estate, or tokenized startup shares. So let's say there's a company that wants to use tokenization as a innovation mechanism for new economic models in a regulated way. So like, how Do you want to allow this, or what do you think about this and DeFi, decentralized finance in general, as a future outlook?
Okay, let me answer the second question first, and then we'll go back to your first question. So the answer is we also believe that regulated tokenized assets is an important development and an important technology. We believe that the tokenization, the regulated tokenization of assets will help enable, faster transactions, easier governance, more transparency, which are all good things. So we very much support that. And in fact, we have a POC on the UDPN called, it's POC number 8, digital asset tokenization, which we're running with several organizations now that specialize in digital asset tokenization, whether it's real estate or securities or other things like that. So we're a big believer of that in a regulated environment. Back to your first question about open source and DLT. As organizations, we were very influenced by the open source movement. The business nodes on the UDPN will be open source, which we believe is important. So yeah, that thinking around open source and around decentralized governance very much influenced our thinking when we architected the network and set up the governance structure.
And maybe to add on here, Tim, is also in the area of applications who are running in form of smart contracts on our network. So if we have, as we have pointed out here, travel rule, FX, and KYC, these are applications that we are already know. It's UDPN is designed so they can sit on top of it. So basically, all the simplest form of messaging, sending across, doing payments and stuff like this happens on the infrastructure layer and on the application layer. There's a lot of different applications possible, right? And exactly this is what we are trying to create, this network effect of having a kind of like regulated app store environment where you can third-party vendors can create applications, can market it themselves. Just imagine today, one bank has a really good KYC solutions, and for them it becomes a new business model, a new income stream to market this to maybe some of their competitors if they want to, some of their partner organizations, sell it to some of their existing customers, right? All of these like new revenue streams are possible with UDPN, and this is a core element of our design as well. So we are already talking to a number of organizations, startup, larger organizations in terms of like providing such applications and letting them sit on top of it. And as Tim mentioned, yeah, so the POCs are meant to actually elaborate that and identify that. So digital asset tokenization is one that we are heavily engaged in this. Another one is like building the travel rule becomes very, very interesting because interpretations can vary a little bit on that. There's also like companies out there who doing like really good sanction checks, for example. So these will be all applications that are onboarded on UDPN, connected through, and with the underlying messaging infrastructure can be used and leveraged on it.
So thanks. Let's talk about the network effect of the Digital Euro Association, which is, I guess, one of our best selling points. And as we all saw, the best questions came from the audience. So thank you so much for this. At the beginning of the call, you said, please contact us. There's the email contact at udpn.io. What do you expect? What do you offer? Do you offer grants for builders? Do you want businesses? Do you want researchers? Who should contact you? And yeah.
I think people who want to participate in the POCs, especially from banks or tech companies, we welcome involvement from universities. We already have 2 or 3 university engagements going on now. We had several universities participate in a new POC that we kicked off last week. And generally anyone in the community who wants to get involved who has questions.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Steffen and team, for this super inter-discussion. And a great and a big thank you to the audience who actively participated. So if you enjoy this content, please like this video and share it. And we see you at the next episode of the DEA Tech Tuesday. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you again. Thank you to the Digital Euro Association for having us. We look forward to working with you.
Absolutely. And thanks for the great questions. Very refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.